Barry Bonds baseball cards, 22 most important and valuable. Barry Bonds baseball cards weren't always the toast of the hobby, and especially not at the beginning of his career. Back then in 1986 and 1987, collectors were hungry for the next big home run monster. Jose Canseco, Wally Joyner, Ruben Sierra, Mark McGuire, Pete Incaviglia, Eric Davis. All of them, and plenty of others, could mash the daylights out of a baseball, and their card prices swirled upwards with the hype. Bonds, on the other hand, was billed as a five tools player, and his early returns bore that out. Double digit power, 20-30 steal speed, lots of time on base, and excellent to a spectacular defense. It was all great news for his Pittsburgh Pirates, but didn't really light a fire under the hobby. When Bonds signed as a free agent for his hometown San Francisco Giants before the 1993 season, though, everything changed. That summer, Bonds launched 40 plus homers for the first time and won his third National League MVP award. He maintained his status as maybe the most complete player in the game, too, and kept racking up the numbers through the Dingers explosion at the end of the decade. His cards climbed in stature and price, but not in any sort of outrageous fashion. When Bonds joined the home run brigade with a record of 73 in 2001, though, his cards were off to the races, and they revved for the next several years until the PED scandals began to rock the game. Today, Bonds cards ebb and flow a bit with every Hall of Fame election cycle, but mostly sit at the level of a Cooperstown enshrinee, even though he's still on the outside looking in. And a trip through Barry's cardboard portfolio is a dance with baseball history of the 1980s through the 2000s. What follows is just such a jaunt through the complete run of Barry Bonds baseball cards, one for each season of his storied career. Why just one? Well, there's nearly 3,000 items in the PSA Bonds Master Set, and there's just no way to go into detail about each of them, short of a Bible sized tome. Instead, I've picked out the most important cards for each year as determined by A, historical significance, B, card values, or C, my personal preference. You may not agree with all my picks, but there's no denying that overall, these are some great Barry Bonds baseball cards. Note, values listed are based on actual recent sales of graded cards in PSA 9 condition. So let's get started. 1986 Topps Traded Tiffany, Barry Bonds, rookie card, number 11T. None of the big three card companies made a Bonds card in their 1986 base sets, but all of them came around that fall when Bobby's son stuck with the Pirates following a late May call up. Even then, Bond's first major league cards weren't all that popular with collectors, not when the end of year sets also featured the likes of Jose Canseco, Bo Jackson, Wally Joyner, Will Clark, Danny Tartabull, and others who had made bigger splashes. Fast forward to 2020, though, and it's Bonds battling Bo for supremacy. And while Bond's Fleer Update and Donruss the Rookies are popular in their own right, it's his 1986 Topps Traded issue that became a hobby icon as Barry was mowing down records in the 1990s and 2000s. Add in an uptake in quality and scarcity that the Tiffany versions bring to the table, and you're standing at the top of the mountain when it comes to Barry Bonds baseball cards. Value $950 to $1,200. 1987 Donruss Opening Day, Barry Bonds, rookie card, number 163. Bonds had cards in all three base sets, plus several specials or oddball issues in 1987. So, what makes this midseason Donruss set stand out above all the rest? Well, for one thing, 1987 Donruss Opening Day celebrated the players who were on their team's opening day rosters that year, which also happened to be Bond's very first opening day in the majors. And oh, yeah. There is this little matter of Donruss confusing Johnny Ray for Bonds in the first run of this set, giving collectors one of our toughest choices of the 1980s. Open our opening day set looking for a scarce Ray right jersey error, or leave it sealed and maintain the mystery and intrigue. Value $30 to $40. 1988 score Barry Bonds, number 265. After the rookie avalanche and polarizing iconic card designs of 1987, the crop of 1988 baseball cards seem bland by comparison. They pretty much still do, even all these years later. So, 1988 score wins the Bond slot sort of by default, as the new set brought plenty of hype and some residual excitement. Today, this card stands as pretty much a good looking early career Bonds card that won't break the bank. It might have been a stunner had Score opted for the gold or yellow or black borders to complement the Pirates team color. Value $20 to $30. 1989 Bowman Tiffany, Barry Bonds, number 426. Yes, Upper Deck ruled the hobby in 1989, and the hype was mostly justified. But there was another new set vying for the headlines that summer, Topps' resurgence of the classic Bowman line. They were going to be big and bold and colorful and sideways, just like the classic cards of the 1950s. And it was going to be epic. And then we saw them, and they felt sort of gimmicky, and they wouldn't fit in our plastic sheets or sleeves or 800 count boxes. Still, it is a sharp Bonds card that brings back memories of a time when 1990's explosion was starting to swirl. Value $10 to $15. 1990 Leaf Barry Bonds, number 91. Starting with those scorecards in 1988, every new season in the late 1980s and early 1990s seemed to bring at least one debut set that ratcheted up the competition and stole collectors' attention. In the summer of 1990, it was the return of the Leaf name by then Donruss property. Fueled by a clean, cool design, plenty of hot rookies, hello Frank Thomas and John Olerud, and tight production numbers, 1990 Leaf was an absolute sensation. That summer, Bonds broke out into his first MVP campaign, which makes this marriage a perfect snapshot of the hobby and the game. Value $10 to $20. 1991 Donruss Elite Barry Bonds, number 1. One of the big hobby stories of the early 1990s was the explosion of insert mania, wherein collectors gobbled up packs in hopes that a limited, non base card lurked inside. You can probably trace the origins of insert mania to at least the 1990 Upper Deck Reggie Jackson Heroes. But 1991 Donruss Elite was the first time we had special inserts with numbered runs printed on card backs or fronts. With a production run of 10,000 each, the Elite series of 8 cards wasn't scarce by modern standards, but it was downright non existent compared to the millions of each 1991 Donruss and other cards that were issued. And Barry Bonds was right there, leading off the set at card number 1, heading a cast that also included George Brett, Jose Canseco, Andre Dawson, Doug Drabeck, Cecil Fielder, Ricky Henderson, and Matt Williams. Next time you're watching someone rip some cards on one of those Ronco hyped YouTube channels with the Red Bull fueled red faced shot machine host, just remember you have this card to thank. Value $400 to $500. 1992 Topps Gold Barry Bonds, number 380. Another card selling vehicle that eventually became the regular among cardboard giants was the concept of a parallel issue, a set that featured exactly the same checklist as the base set and the same basic design, but then added something new to the equation. Earlier tests of this concept included 1975 Topps Minis, 1984 Topps Nestle, and 1991 Topps Bowman Desert Shield. But 1992 Topps Gold was the first full-fledged nationally distributed parallel set. As the name implies, Topps Gold added gold foiled accents to the card fronts, notably on the bottom banner that shows player and team information. Not only that, Topps also ditched their brown mush cardstock for the first time in 1992, upgrading, finally, to more premium white stock. Hard to think of a more monumental card for this slot than the 1992 Topps Gold, especially considering it's the last of the Topps Barry Bonds baseball cards issued while he was still a member of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Value $15 to $20. 1993 Topps Finest Barry Bonds, number 103. In 1993, Topps upped their super premium game with the debut of the Finest line, which introduced refractors to the market and became the first major release with an announced print run, 4,000 12-box cases distributed only through dealers that fall. Doing the math and considering refractors were inserted at about 1 per box roughly, something like 30,000 of each base card and 241 of each refractor were produced. Tiny and tinier numbers for the day. The influence of this set on the modern market is hard to overstate, as refractors still proliferate across almost every product, and production numbers are generally well known. So combine one of the handful of greatest hitters of all time with a hobby groundbreaker, and you have a card that's hard to ignore. Step up to a refractor version, and you can multiply these values by a factor of 30 or so. Barry Bonds baseball cards don't come any more important than this one. Value $30 to $40. 1994 Donruss Barry Bonds, number 349. The market was pretty much out of control by 1994, at least in terms of the number of different cards produced. For instance, PSA's master list for Bonds cards shows 178 entries for that strike-killed season. You pretty much have no chance of collecting everything, in other words, so you have to pick what you like. And what's not to like about this unusual cardboard site of Barry Bonds plying his trade in the grass with Wrigley Field ivy as his backdrop? Value $10 to $20. 1995 Bazooka Barry Bonds number 20. Like the resurrection of the Bowman line in 1989, there was some magic nostalgia at work in the red, white, and blue Bazooka logo on cards in the mid 1990s. Hank Aaron himself would have looked right at home on one of these babies, and this particular beauty frames Bonds perfectly as he leaves the batter box after connecting on what you can only assume is yet another big hit. Value $20 to $30. 1996 Bowman Barry Bonds number 100. Bonds just connected again on his 1996 Bowman card, and he's hustling down the line. Potential close play at first, or is he just flexing the wheels as his smash sails out of the park in left field? Hard to say, but Bonds looks ready for battle with his armor on his right forearm and his own image in his left. And for a splash of nostalgia, the card borders are whispering something about 1968 Topps. Value $10 to $20. 1997 Topps Barry Bonds number 465. There's no doubt about what's happening on Bond's 1997 Topps card, though. Mic drop, back flexed and ready to strut, eyes watching the ball. Yeah, Barry buried one. And we get another glimpse of Wrigley Field to boot. Value $15 to $20. 1998 Topps Hallbound Barry Bonds number HB12. In 1998, Topps decided there were 15 Hall of Fame shoe-ins among the then current players and issued an insert set of Hall-bound cards to celebrate them. This, at the dawn of the steroid era, before 70 and 73, before 756 and 762, before all the Barry has a big head now stuff. And yeah, Bonds was in the Hall-bound set. Just saying. Value $15 to $25. 1999 Fleer Tradition Golden Memories Barry Bonds number 2 GM. While Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, and the rest of the Homer Brigade were chasing down Roger Maris while laying down the groundwork for their own demise, Bonds was busy tracking down his own milestone, 400 home runs and 400 stolen bases. Bonds charted the 400-400 club when he tagged his 26th dinger of the season, and Fleer celebrated the accomplishment with this card a year-ish later. Value $15 to $20. 2000 Fleer Gamers Barry Bonds number 79. This card is a keeper because it features another seldom seen shot of Bonds in the field, this one adding a bit of flair with its dazzling home rights. There is a bit of sarcasm here too, as the season depicted, 1999, was the first time Bonds posted a negative defense WAR, which was slippage enough to break his streak of 3 Gold Gloves, 8 and 9 years, for his work in left field. Value $10 to $15. 2001 Fleer Barry Bonds Home Run King, number BBHRK. Fleer cranked up the presses late in 2001 to get this one card set out to the market, complete with a couple of variations, a jumbo card number to 2,500 and an autograph version number to 500. Whichever one you nab, you have the first card commemorating Bonds' monstrous 73 home run 2001 campaign that made him the single-season record holder and made us all believe that he could unify the Homer titles with a run at Hank Aaron's career mark. Value $20 to $40. 2002 Topps Barry Bonds Season Highlights number 336. As expected, Topps joined the official Barry Bonds celebration parade in its 2002 base set with this season highlight card. And as any fan of that very special John Wathan entry at number 6 of the 1983 Topps set can attest, no baseball card is really complete or official until Topps chimes in. Value $10 to $15. 2003 Topps Barry Bonds number 396. The 2003 Topps set channeled the classic 1983 Topps design, which in turn channeled the 1963 Topps, with a bit of 1986 Fleer mixed in. It's a solid and distinctive look, and Bond's beautiful and powerful follow-through on card number 396 makes this one a work of art. Value $10 to $15. 2004 Donruss Barry Bonds, number 359. If you like your Barry Bonds baseball cards with a slight different slant on life, then this 2004 Donruss might be just right for you. This is a pretty nice card in its own right, with a minimalist design that lets the landscape image of Bonds connecting on the front of Pac Bell, yes, I said it, faithful, work its magic. But what's really noteworthy about this one is that it's the very last Donruss Barry Bonds card issued while both were still active and allowed to wear Major League Baseball logos. Value $5 to $15. 2005 Topps Barry Bonds MVP number 716. At age 39, Bonds put together one of the most amazing seasons in baseball history in 2004. A league-leading 362 batting average, his second hitting crown, a ridiculous 1.422 OPS and 263 OPS plus, and a bonkers 232 walks, 120 of which were intentional. That was enough for Bonds to win his all-time best, seventh, and last MVP award. The accomplishment Topps celebrated with this 2005 card. Value $5 to $10. 2006 Topps Allen and Ginter Barry Bonds number 100. Topps rolled the hobby clock way back in 2006, reviving the classic Allen and Ginter tobacco cards of 1887 with basically the same design and with the exact same name. The 305 card issue was a hit, and Bonds is beaming about the whole thing here on card number 100. Value $10 to $15. 2007 Topps Barry Bonds number 1 All-Time Home Runs number 756. With not much left to prove in the game, Bonds capped off his historic career on August 7, 2007 by smashing home run number 756 at home against the Washington Nationals. That long ball gave him the all-time record, just ahead of Hank Aaron. Bonds would connect 6 more times before the end of the season, which turned out to be his last in the majors. To commemorate the historic moment, Topps issued an insert card before the calendar flipped to the new year and the beginning of the post-Bonds era. It was the last of the Barry Bonds baseball cards issued while he was still active, or at least close to it. Value $5 to $10. WaxPackGods.com.